You're watching Jim Cantelon Today. This is Bible study for the 21st century. If you're watching the program last time, you met Mark Vander Vennen. He is the executive director of the Shalem Mental Health Network, a remarkable ministry that is coming alongside churches and helping them with their congregants who are dealing with mental health issues. And what church isn't dealing with that big time? He's a terrific guest. We're going to be talking about a number of things today that relate to some of the issues that people are facing in the mental health area. You won't want to miss it. And after that, we'll continue with our Bible study segment.
Jim Cantelon Today is a program dedicated to the teaching of the good news of Jesus Christ. This all through the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. JCT also brings to you encouraging testimonies and stories from Christian leaders all over the globe. If this program has added value to your life, would you please consider becoming a partner? To do so, simply contact us by phone, mail, or online.
So I'm really pleased, as I said off the top, to have Mark Vander Vennen back. He is the executive director of the Shalem Mental Health Network, shalemnetwork.org, if you want to check them out. He's a psychotherapist. He's also a marriage and family therapist. And last week, we just started talking in general terms about some of the issues that he's dealing with in his remarkable work. And now we're going to kind of bore down into some specifics. Now, Mark, something that absolutely jumped out at me when I was looking at your material was, as you call it, a troubling social trend, a trend that Shalem calls the professionalization of care. For the last number of decades as a society, we have tended to offload our responsibility to care for those who are most vulnerable to the professionals. Mm-hmm. And then you go on to talk about how the professional and the extended family member don't even meet, they don't even talk anymore. Tell me about this.
So a number of years ago, I was asked to give a talk on what keeps me awake at night.
Yeah.
And I said, I sleep pretty good, but if there's something that does, it's this thing that I call the professionalization of care. And just that, I think we have offloaded our responsibility as communities, people, to care for the most vulnerable to the professionals. And what that's done is overloaded the professional sector because there's long waiting lists, there's funding issues, but it's also disempowered us as communities because as community people, we tend to defer to the experts, the psychiatrist, the social worker, and so forth. But you have this sense that neither one on their own can do it. Professionals on their own can't do it. Communities on their own can't do it. But if they could work together in a partnership in a different way than they presently do, then maybe together they could. And that's what we're about at Shalem, is everything we're doing is a kind of demonstration project in a new and different partnership between those two sectors.
And when you talk about the professional community and the extended community, the community working together, are you talking about the extended family?
Extended family, but also like communities like churches or workplaces or schools or neighborhoods.
Right.
And we do a lot of work with churches, and we're convicted by the gospel. That's our driving force. So what does the gospel have to do with mental health? Well, we're supporting churches to be part of that partnership with professional communities in specific ways. And what I have been amazed by is this partnership looks to be so fertile that our work has just taken off in ways beyond what I would have imagined. And so we continue to kind of mine the depths
So
of
you
that.
got a bit of a sleeping giant there that you're waking up. It could very well be that because of our culture, as you say, offloading care to the professionals, that we've just assumed that we can't really do anything effective as lay people, right?
Right.
But it seems to me that, as the Bible says, love covers a multitude of sins.
Right.
I may not be a professional, but if I have love for this person who is suffering, it seems to me the impact of love can be very powerful.
Very powerful. Now, I want to be careful. Like both are needed. So sometimes as community people, we do need a little bit of support from the professional side so that we don't inadvertently cause more harm, which can sometimes happen, right? But what you say is right on, because the neuroscience today, it's phenomenal what it's discovering around the healing effect of relationship, of conversation, of love. Because we are literally wiring each other's brains when we connect, and we're wiring each other's brains towards healing if it's a positive connection. And that's a very powerful agent of healing. I believe that's how God works between us. And when it's supported by just the right amount of expertise, it really, really makes a difference, right?
Can you give me a little example? I'm sure you have many, but of this at work, this uniting of the professional with the community in its impact in someone's life?
So in some of the programs that we do, I mentioned last time our congregational assistance plan, where a church links up with psychotherapists through us. Right. Another one that we do is something we call faith care, which is faith communities affirming restorative experiences. And it's especially in churches. If you've got a conflict in a church, and we all know that conflicts happen in churches, sometimes they can be very polarizing, very divisive, very harmful. People leave the church. How can we work through conflict in a way that allows us to move forward, deepens relationship, and actually deepens connection and a sense of community? And we do a lot of restorative justice, a lot of restorative practice work, supporting congregations to develop healthy relationships, and then to have them have the tools to deal with conflict when it happens, so that they can be vital communities that really the conflict doesn't get in the way of their mission.
So you have a proactive plan to mitigate church splits.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
What a concept.
Exactly.
You know, anybody shouldn't be splitting as Christians, but it's happening all the time.
Absolutely right.
I mean, a lot of the denominations of the world begin with church splits.
And we know, we all know Paul's injunction to be ministers of reconciliation. That's the calling we've been given. But we don't always just know how to do it, right? Yeah. So the impulse is there, the desire is there. But again, with a little bit of training, a little bit of expertise, we can learn ways to do it that are actually really effective and rooted in science and all that kind of stuff.
Now, when you're dealing with a church, sooner or later, you're also dealing with a pastor.
Yes.
Or a pastor's staff.
Yes.
But I happen to know this because I'm a pastor and have been for 50 years. I started when I was very young.
Yeah.
A lot of pastors need help.
Absolutely.
A lot of pastors are mentally stressed. Some are mentally ill. Some are depressed.
Right.
And yet they're seen as the rock.
Right.
They're the sort of the godly standard in the congregation. And sometimes they're under that stress to at least put on a front of having it all together.
You know, a number of years ago, there's a thing at the University of Toronto called the Centre for Clergy Care. They did a cross-Canada survey and found that pastors have twice the rate of depression as the national average. So you're right. Pastors are, I have a real heart for pastors, because pastors are at the front lines of this mental health stuff, but they're not necessarily supported the way therapists are, for example, by supervision and all that kind of thing. And they're expected to have their own life together, and their own life is an open book for everyone in the congregation to see, and their family. It's very challenging. Yeah.
I, as a preacher's kid, I've had a lot of friends over the years who are also preacher's kids. And a lot of preacher's kids have not had the positive experience I had. Fortunately, I had a preacher dad who was the same guy over the breakfast table as he was in the pulpit.
Nice.
Which was terrific.
Beautiful, yeah.
But some of my friends who were preacher's kids saw this great gulf fix between their private dad and their public dad.
Right.
And this caused them, to become cynical.
Yeah.
And in many cases say, I'm not going to have anything to do with this.
Yeah.
When I'm old enough to leave, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Perhaps it hasn't occurred to them that their father and mom too often have been under a very oppressive stress load.
It's very challenging. Churches really need to give pastors permission to be themselves, be vulnerable, and not be perfect. Yeah.
Maybe the place to start is with the pastor himself when he doesn't hold himself up to that an impossible standard.
Right.
Now, in terms of your work with Shalem, you're dealing with people from every background.
Right.
But because you're working in many cases with churches, would you have a disproportionate number of committed Christian people you're working with?
I would say probably.
Are there any differences between the community of faith and the secular community in terms of the mental health issues they're facing?
That's a big topic and a good one.
Yeah.
I'll mention a couple of differences.
Yeah.
One is sort of positive, one is negative.
Yeah.
I'll start with the negative one.
Yeah.
Say you're coming in and you're dealing with depression.
Yeah.
And you're also a person of faith, a believer.
Right.
Sometimes it's more challenging working with Christians in that profile than non-Christians.
Why?
Because they have this view that not only am I a failure as a person because I'm depressed, I'm a failure as a Christian because I'm depressed.
Right.
Christ has redeemed me. That means I've got a new life. I should be doing well. I should be happy. I'm a new person, a new man or a new woman, but I'm depressed. So it's an added layer on top of the depression, right? So that's the negative thing. The positive thing is many people that we work with are going through incredible things. They may be dealing with bipolar. They're dealing with having been sexually abused as a child, maybe even in the church by somebody. But their faith is actually so strong that it really helps keep them going in really dark times. And you can really connect with that in a therapy session, for example. They need more than that too, but that's a powerful fundamental thing for them that really helps pull them through.
When you mention the sense of failure that Christian people have because they're depressed, I mean, that's a very real issue.
Yeah.
Time and time, I more than once I've been asked by, congregants going through this kind of deep water, Pastor, what's wrong with me? And have I committed the unpardonable sin?
Right.
Is God fed up with me?
Right.
Have I just been under the illusion that I'm, one of his children and really I'm not?
When we come down with cancer or we get diabetes, we don't ask those questions.
No.
But depression is not much different than those things, right? A
Yeah.
mental illness is an illness, like a cancer, for example, right?
Yeah. And is it counseling that will help more than anything, or is it counseling in combination with medication?
The research suggests, and that's our experience too, the two combined are the most helpful.
I've often said to some of my people over the years who've been reluctant to take medication, I said, tell me, are you reluctant to wear glasses?
Yeah.
You have issues with your eyes, so you wear glasses to correct your vision.
Right.
You've got a blood chemistry issue here. Why would you have issues with correcting your blood chemistry?
Right.
Is that a simplistic question?
No, it's not simplistic. That's right on.
Yeah.
Your answer is right on.
Yeah. Because there has been a stigma attached to it. I mean, I'm a lesser Christian than those around me because I'm depressed.
And I'm a flawed human being.
It's interesting to me, Mark, that, well, you know what, I'll get into this next time because we're running out of time. And when I'm interviewing you, the time just flies. Mark Vander Vennen is my guest. He's the executive director of the Shalem Mental Health Network, shalemnetwork.org. Check him out. I'll be back with our Bible teaching segment right after this.
Friends, as you know, Jim Cantelon has been offering Cantelon's Casual Commentary as a Bible study supplement to his ongoing exposition of St. Matthew's Gospel on JCT TV. He's excited to offer Volume 4, which completes the Matthew study. The Transfiguration, Triumphal Entry, Crucifixion, and Resurrection of Jesus Christ are all covered in this volume. Like the first 3 volumes, it's concise, captivating, and casual. To order your copy, you can call, write, or go online. Request Cantelon's Casual Commentary Volume 4, and for a gift in any amount, it will be sent to you. When you place your order, also consider becoming a monthly partner. Remember, your gifts help us build this ministry.
Matthew 27, verse 35, then they crucified him, referring to Jesus, of course, and divided his garments, casting lots, that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken by the prophet, they divided my garments among them, and for my clothing they cast lots. Sitting down, they kept watch over him there, and they put up over his head the accusation written against him, this is Jesus, the King of the Jews. Now, this is quite the scene. As I said last time, when a person was crucified, they were crucified naked. I don't know at what point they stripped the clothing off, probably just as they're putting him upright on the cross. Horribly humiliating. But whatever garments Jesus did have would have been bloodstained, I would think. Why the Roman soldiers were arguing over and fighting for and casting lots for his garments is beyond me, other than the fact that maybe it might have been a very expensive garment, who knows? Suggesting maybe, among other things, that the soldiers may have been poorly paid. Why else divide his garments? I mean, Matthew 22:18 is the biblical reference there. I should say Psalm 22, verse 18, looking back to Old Testament prophecy. And they're also keeping watch. And they'd probably been warned about the possibility of the disciples storming, Calvary and taking Jesus' body down before he died and, trying to approximate some kind of a resurrection before he was actually dead. We don't know, but they're keeping watch. But generally speaking, it was Roman custom to not just guard the body for the day at least, but also to hang a sign or a placard around the neck of the man being crucified. It was a document that had on it the list of charges as to why this person was hanging on this cross, okay? And as I said last time, the crosses were at eye level. So people would come along, look a guy right in the eye, spit in his face if they wanted to, and read the charges right there, right on his chest. In Jesus' case, they put the placard above his head. And they had written that this is Jesus, the King of the Jews. Now, this is a double-pronged sword here. Pilate, as you know, could find no reason to crucify Jesus. He was pressured into it, and he basically gave in to the demands of the crowd, releasing Jesus Barabbas, who was a notorious insurgent, rather than anyone else, in order that Jesus might be crucified. This is Jesus, King of the Jews. From a Roman perspective, anyone who declared himself king was not only an insurgent, but was a total threat to the entire Roman Empire and must be terminated, okay? So he used the word king to, cover his own backside. But he's also saying King of the Jews as a kind of a way of getting back at the Sadducees, specifically, the temple authorities, who had insisted that Jesus be crucified. Why do you want him crucified? Well, because he calls himself king, and he's not our king. Only Messiah will be our king, okay? Well, in putting this placard up, Pilate is just basically in your face with the Sadducees, the temple authorities, saying, he's king of the Jews. Sorry. Anyway, it was doubly offensive, this placard, this sign over Jesus' head. But basically Rome was saying, this is what we do to any pretender. And to the Jews it was saying, I got the last laugh here, Pilate speaking, okay? So we move on. And those who passed by blasphemed him, wagging their heads. And that would mean clucking their tongues, saying, you who destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, which of course is one of the lies that the false witnesses had brought against Jesus when he was being tried before Caiaphas. Save yourself. If you're the Son of God, come down from the cross. Yeah. Likewise, the chief priests also, these are the Sadducees, mocking with the scribes and elders, the elders being the members of the Sanhedrin, the ruling civil council in Jerusalem. He saved others, himself he cannot save. If he's the king of Israel, let him now come down from the cross and we will believe him. Everyone gets in on the act here of mocking Jesus. The temple elite, the civil authorities, and even, as we say in Hebrew, the Am Ha'aretz, the people of the land, the everyday, blue-collar worker. They're all in on it. He saved others, himself he cannot save. And if thou be, if you are the Son of God. Well, what does that remind you of? It reminds you of Satan's temptation of Jesus in the wilderness, when he said, if you are the Son of God, here's what you can do. You can make bread out of these stones. You can avoid this snobby little hill called Calvary. In other words, just prove yourself. By the way, even the insurgents or thieves on either side of Jesus got in on it, according to Matthew. Luke tells us in his book, in chapter 23, verse 40, that one of the thieves later repented, which is a very touching scene. But nevertheless, it was total chaos, all kinds of vilification, threats, nasty comments, raucous, evil laughter. We finally got this guy. He was a thorn in our flesh for all of these years, and now we got him. We win. The capacity human nature has for just downright evil is almost limitless. But that was the scene, okay? He trusted in God. Let him deliver him, if he will have him. For he said, I am the Son of God. Even the robbers who were crucified with him reviled him with the same thing. And now from the 6th hour until the 9th hour, there was darkness over all the land. And about the 9th hour, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, crying, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani? That is to say, my God, why have you forsaken me? Matthew tells us he was crucified at the 3rd hour, which is 9 a.m. in the Roman time frame. The 6th hour is noon, and the 9th hour is 3 p.m. in the afternoon, okay? So basically, we're looking at 6 hours here, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Matthew tells us there was darkness from noon to 3 a.m. while Jesus hung on the cross dying. And then he died at 3 with a loud cry, quoting Psalm 22, verse 1. My God, why hast thou forsaken me? I've heard all kinds of emotional argument about this, about God forsaking his son. I don't see that at all. What I see here is that Jesus was meditating on Psalm 22, which is a messianic psalm, as he hung on the cross. He'd probably memorized all of the Psalms. Who knows how much scripture he knew by heart. But he's certainly remembering or meditating on Psalm 22. And at this point, as he's just about to die, he quotes part of it. I don't see any more than that. I really don't. Read Psalm 22 for yourself. You'll see it's very applicable to what Jesus was going through. Some of the people said, what's he doing here? Is he calling for Elijah? Verse 47. Immediately one of them ran and took a sponge, filled it with sour wine, put it on a reed, offered it to him to drink. The rest said, let him alone. Let's see if Elijah will come to save him. Jesus cried out again with a loud voice, yielded up his spirit. Then behold, the veil of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom, and the earth quaked and the rocks were split. and graves were opened. Whoa. What a moment. Calling for Elijah? The people were confusing Eli with Eliyahu, maybe. Hardly, in my view. I think Jesus in agony was probably not speaking clearly, or the people weren't hearing clearly. There was a lot of noise surrounding him, and Jesus would not be exactly articulate at this point in time. But nevertheless, one of the compassionate Roman soldiers offers him what they called pasca, which was a drink made of water, sour wine, and egg. And this would have been a kindness on this guy's part. And then there were those still of the Romans holding out hope that Jesus may have been the Messiah. Maybe Elijah will save him at this last minute. Okay? But we see in verse 50, Jesus died quickly. He died. And that is a critical component in our understanding of the gospel. Jesus truly died.
JCT TV is the official voice of WOW, working for orphans and widows. Jim Cantelon is the founder of WOW and has been ministering to orphans and widows in distress for 18 years. WOW's focus is home-based care for the dying. The horizon is vast, with thousands of the least of these in Africa and India. WOW depends on your generous support. To do so, simply contact us by phone, mail, or online.
You know, friends, if you want to support JCT and Working for Orphans and Widows, you're more than welcome to do so. When you request Cantelon's Casual Commentary, and it's in 4 parts, this is Matthew, which I will send out to you if you ask for it. It's commentary, it's casual, it's for the 21st century, like the show, and it fills in a lot of the blanks that need to be filled in because of my time constraints here on television. But this is a pretty popular item, and you can fit it into your purse or your back pocket, you slip it in your Bible. It's very convenient, and it's quite thorough. I know you'll enjoy it. When you ask for it, remember to support JCT and Working for Orphans and Widows, because we're one and the same. We not only proclaim the gospel, we try to live and demonstrate the gospel by visiting orphans and widows in their distress in sub-Saharan Africa and also in India. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your support. I'm looking forward to our next time. Until then, bye for now.